Toast to the Morning Word crowd. God bless y'all and God bless America. All right, here we go. Today and tomorrow now, last regular broadcast till after the first of the year. Luke 2, verse 41. His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of Passover. Let me just stop right there. The law of Moses required every male, and certainly his family if he was married, to go to Jerusalem, if at all possible, during three feasts, three of the Jewish feasts. And I think it was Feast of Passover, Feast of Tabernacles, and Day of Atonement. But Jesus was born under the law, so quite naturally, and his parents were observers of the law, so they were going to Jerusalem from Nazareth to attend the Passover feast, which is one day, and then it's followed by the Feast of Unleavened Bread for another 7 days. And that's what they were observing. Jesus was born under the law and under its requirements, and therefore he was in Jerusalem on those days. And I'm not going to get into all of it, but the Feast of Pentecost and all that, they all play in. And Jesus will return. Jesus will return to the earth under the law, according to the feast. All right. So, let's start again. His parents went to Jerusalem every year at the Feast of Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast, meaning at the appointed time by the law. When they had finished the days, that's the days of the feast, as they returned, the boy Jesus lingered behind in Jerusalem. And Joseph and his mother did not know it, but supposing him to have been in the company, they went a day's journey and sought him among their relatives and acquaintances. So when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. Now it was after 3 days that they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. So when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously." He said to them, "Why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my father's business?" But they did not understand the statement which he spoke to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them, meaning he came under their authority. But his mother kept all these things in her heart, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. I'm not going to focus on that today, probably tomorrow, that last part. I do want to back up here and focus on this first part. Today's morning word is called losing Jesus. How would you like to lose Jesus? Now, here he is. He's 12 years old. His family is doing what they have traditionally been doing all their life. They're going to Jerusalem from Nazareth to observe the Feast of Passover. It's a week-long feast because it's immediately followed by the Feast of Unleavened Bread for another 7 days. So they have traveled with an entourage, with a group. Now that was by design, by the fact that everybody else was doing it. And so they were traveling together. You're going from here to there, and you're walking or riding mules or donkeys or camels. You go together. And that was, you traveled as families, as clans, as communities. And then it was very safe. The more numbers of people you had, the safer it was from the peril of robbers or thieves or so forth. So most of the time when they traveled, the women and the children were in the front and the men were in the back. Well, Jesus is 12 years old, so he literally qualified to be in the front or the back of the traveling group. Probably as mama and the women folks and the kids are up front, Jesus is not there. She probably thinks he's in the back with the men. Joseph is in the back with the men bringing up the rear, and Jesus is not there. He probably thinks that he's up front with the women and the children, only to get to their first little campsite and to look around and goes, "Where's Jesus?" Can you imagine? Mary's mind goes all the way back to the conversation with the angel. He shall save his people from the sins. This is the Son of God. And Mary and Joseph have been entrusted to raise Now, you talking about some pressure? How would you like to be tagged by God to raise his son? Yeah. You talking about getting out those hooked on phonics classes and getting those number tablets out? This boy's going to know his numbers, right? He's going to know his decimals and his timetables. He's going to know, all about how to trim the hooves on a camel. He's going to know about how to get the corner square on a box. His daddy's a carpenter. And I just sitting there, I was thinking about that this morning. I wonder if Mary popped Jesus' hand and said, don't do that again, boy. Can you hear the conversations that Mary and Joseph had in quietness? And Jesus knows it. Mary, I needed to pop his tail today, but then I thought, I can't be spanking God. Or should I? What? Can you imagine that? Well, anyway, that's for another day. Can you imagine Mary and Joseph looking at him like Home Alone? Kevin's not here. Kevin's not here. Kevin's not here. Kevin's not here. Hey, hand this to Jesus. Hand this to Jesus. Hand this to Jesus. Hand this to Jesus. Jesus isn't here. Jesus isn't here. Jesus isn't here. It gets back to the mama. Jesus isn't here. Jesus! Where's Jesus? We have lost the creator of the world. We have lost God. They retrace their steps. They go all the way back to the temple. And I'm talking about there's thousands and thousands of people there, if not a million. And they're going through the crowd. It's like looking for somebody in Disney World. They found him after 3 days, and he's sitting in listening. I don't know what Jesus did for 2 nights by himself. Suffice it to say that he was all right? They find him. His mother is exasperated and said, son, reminds me of myself, son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously. That's putting it mild. And about right then, y'all know how it is when you lose your kids and you get so scared. You lose them at the mall. You lost them when they were little at the fair, or you lost them at Six Flags, or you lost them at Disney World. You finally found them, and you're so grateful that you found them, but you're so stinking mad you could just bite a nail and you pop them little jaws. Now, don't get me wrong. I've never slapped anybody in the face. It's just a figure of speech, but I will slap that little butt. You want to come here, boy. Get your tail. What you mean? Scared the stew out of us like that. But now get this. That's the human side of it. They find him. He's listening and asking questions, and they are amazed at the depth of the wisdom that he has. And the Jewish rabbis, he's having an adult conversation about spiritual things with the Jewish rabbis. And Jesus turns and says, don't you know that I must be about my Father's business? He has this understanding now at the age of 12 that he is made for bigger and better things. He's not going to just be a carpenter of Mary and Joseph's son. He's going to be the Savior of the world. And this is unfolding to him through the scriptures. The Spirit of God is grooming him and preparing him. And he's beginning to understand that his path is going to quickly diverge from the path of his mother and father. And he's going to go do his thing, but it's going to be his Father's work, his will. But it says, so he's beginning to get this understanding about his future and what his purpose in life is. And it says, then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them, meaning that he came under their authority for the next 18 years. He went into public ministry at approximately the age of 30. So for the next 18 years, he's at home. During this time, in this 18 years of silence of Jesus' life, Joseph dies. Jesus is the head of the family as the firstborn. He's probably helping his mama raise his siblings. And then obviously when the kids get old enough, his siblings get old enough that they can kind of help take care of things around the house, he goes into public ministry. And of course, we know the rest of the story, right? Well, here's a couple of things. Let's just think about this, and then we'll close out and go home or go to work. It's both a wonderful thing, and it's also a bittersweet thing. to see your kids grow up, right? I'm sitting here watching. I've got a child, that's a doctor in nursing. I got a child that's a doctor in education. I got a daughter that's going to college on a scholarship in volleyball, and I got a son that's in the 8th grade, and he's the last one at home. So I haven't really had, before Annabeth left home, we had adopted Micah and Elena, and he was 10 months old. So I've never had a completely empty nest. Now, for a summer or two, we did when Jesse was gone and Annabeth was spending the summers out at JH Ranch in California. We had an empty nest for the summer, and that was pretty cool. But, all things being equal, Micah graduates, I'll be 70. Yeah, put that in your hat for those of y'all think you're getting old. So my son will graduate high school, I'll be 70, and then he's going to go do whatever it is he's going to do, and I'll be an empty nester finally and fully at the age of 70. So, but you think about those things and you think, man, you see your kids growing up and they start making decisions and wanting to do things on their own and go out, and you don't really want to let them go, but then you want to let them go, and then sometimes you do want them to go and you want them to come back and visit, but you don't want them to stay. Y'all get the deal. But you get to see your kids grow up, hopefully and prayerfully have some kids, and you get to see them do their parenting, and you start seeing them make some screw ups and some mistakes, doing things that you did, and then you go, oh God, I wish I hadn't done that. And your kid, you tell your kids, hey, lighten up on them a little bit, and they go, lighten up on them? You didn't lighten up on us. Y'all ever had that conversation? You didn't lighten up on us. What's the deal? And Michael brought home he got a little disciplinary thing at school one time, and I told Annabeth about it. She said, well, you know how to fix it. Sounded like Jim Pennington. You know how to fix it? I said, yeah. I said, but I hate. She said, Papa, don't go soft on us now. She said, it didn't hurt me and Jesse. It won't hurt him. Burn his butt up. So I sent an email. His teacher sent an email and said he was cutting up in class. He got a demerit. And she said, I'm going to need you to speak to him and all that. And so I just immediately, after I talked to Annabeth, I just immediately emailed her back. I said, let me tell you what you can do. I said, the next time he does that, I said, take him out in the hall and blister his butt. Well, they email me back. We don't do that anymore. I'm not allowed to do that. I said, you can do it with my child. I will bring you the paddle. I will stand there and watch you burn his end up and then send him back in that classroom. Well, Mr. Fuller, we appreciate your willingness to help us but we can't do that. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come up there. I'll get him out of class. You come outside with me. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'll burn his butt up and send him back into class with a burn up butt and red eyes. How about that? They just chuckled. Okay, Mr. Fuller. So I think they got the message. I told Mike, I said, don't you ever put me in a position that I got to come back up. I got to come up there at school to straighten stuff out, because I'm going to be a Tasmanian devil when I walk in that door. I'm whipping everything I see. And I said, just make it light on yourself. All right. So the deal is this. So Mary and Joseph are dealing with that. See, Jesus is growing older. He's 12 now. And eventually he becomes the head of the household. And you see your kids taking off. And sometimes they make bad choices. They headed off down the path to, oh no. Yeah, it's at the end of the road, right? Oh no. And you kind of point them and you kind of warn them. You say, now, if you keep on going that way, see, when they're in school, you're the cop. But when they get out of school, you're the coach. And then when they get married, you're the counselor. So you coach them about their senior year. You kind of help them make decisions, assist them. And then you keep your mouth shut after they get married. And you just kind of nip it until they ask you, Daddy, what do you think? Well, I'm glad you asked. All right. So if they ask you, then you put your 2 cents in. In other words, Mama, and sometimes Daddy, keep your nose out of your married kids' business and stay out of their house unless they ask you to come over. All right. That's just parenting advice 101. They don't want you walking in on them all the time and then correcting how they're not cleaning their house or letting their kids run around and make messes. That ain't your business. You've raised them up. If you screwed it up, you can't go back and fix it now. Just try to pray them through. But so Mary's at a place now where you got to let them go. And guys, listen, you got to let them go. As they get older, you got to let them go. and you got to let them grow up, and you got to let them scuff themselves up a little bit. Quit rescuing them. I mean, Jesus is 12 years old and he stayed 2 nights by himself in Jerusalem. All right. That's not the best thing to do, but he was all right. So sometimes you just got to say, you know, if you go down that path right there, let me tell you what I see at the end of that path. And if you do it, it's going to hurt. You know, matter of fact, Micah, I'm using him now. Elena's out of the house. I don't have any more Elena stories. I'm using Micah. Micah and about 48 people in his class failed a test. Now, ain't but 70 in his class in that age group in the 8th grade. 48 out of 70 failed it. He made a blistering 31. Now, that was bad. What was really bad was the fact that when I asked him, how you think you did on that test? He said, I think I did pretty good. Well, anyway, they did a retake. But I told the parents were having a discussion on a little group me thing. And I told them, I said, well, you know what? I said, even with a 31, he's got an overall high C right now in the class. He finished with an A, by the way. He recovered. I helped him. I said, he's got a high C. I said, we're just going to take our licks. We're just going to take our licks and go on and just weather the storm. I said, it's not worth all the trauma that it's, you know, that it put me through. I said, I'll have a heart attack worrying about this, and I'll hurt his butt if I whip him as mad as I am right now. So we're just going to let the rough end drag. Well, anyway, they retested. He did good, and all the rest of them did too. It was all obviously a flaw at the top. We won't talk about that. But anyway, some things you just got to let them go through. You know, he left a pair of shoes at a basketball game in a gym down in Greensboro. He said, Papa, I left my shoes. They're brand new tennis shoes. He said, I left my shoes down in Greensboro. I said, sucks to be you. Get your old tennis shoes out. Well, they're too small. So, wrinkle them toes up and think about keeping up with them. How about that? You got to let them hit the ground every now and then, Mama and Daddy, and bounce and help them learn. Now, I know most of y'all kids are grown. I know I'm preaching to the choir. But we're living in a generation now where everybody gets a trophy just for signing up on the team. They're going to get a party and a trophy. You know what we did when we lost? We went home. We didn't get no trophies. We didn't get no ribbons. We didn't get no tootie horns and bubblegum packs and cakes and cookies and all that, and, you know, celebrate getting our butt beat all year. The season was just over. Next year, you get on another team, you go try again. Another team, another coach, another players. And so, you know, they don't bring their book bag home. They got tests tomorrow. Well, let's see how this works out, right? So we are responsible as parents to raise up functioning, independent, hopefully Jesus-loving, Jesus-worshiping, honest kids with integrity and faithfulness. That's how we're trying to. But along the way, and after they're out of the house, you got to let the rough end drag. I mean, just sometimes you got to let the rough. Papa, I forgot my jersey. Borrow one. Borrow one. I am not going to rescue you at every turn and every failure. If you do that, you will grow up thinking that no matter what I do, somebody's going to bail me out of this. No, Alice, they are not. No, they're not. I'm not going to be here forever. Who are you going to call to go get your jersey when I'm gone? Or your shoes? Or study? Who's good? You know, I'm going to take you to church every day you live in my house. That it's time for church. But after you move out of my house, going to church is on you. You don't go, that's between you and God. Good luck with that. All right. So Mary and Joseph was just like everybody else. They had a son that was God and their son. And they had the hardest, but the most blessed challenge in front of them, raising Jesus. And they lost him. They lost him. Can't you see this prayer on the way back to Jerusalem? Father God, if you want your son to grow up in our house, you got to help us find him, because we have lost that boy. We've made a lot of parenting mistakes, but I can tell you one I have never made. I have never lost Jesus in the crowd. I hope you guys have a great day tomorrow. We'll see you, good Lord willing, and the saints don't rise. Peace out.